Hello there and welcome to my reaction to Game Theory FNAF, A Family Rebuilt Ultimate Timeline Finale. It's time to end this, at least for now, until some kind of new game comes out and new theories pop up and the story continues. There's probably not going to be a new game or a book or the movie. I forgot that the movie's coming out actually quite, well, relatively soon. It's probably not gonna redo the already existing timeline. There's no need. Maybe some facts will have to be changed here and there. Maybe some actual timeline could be added to, like, Michael's Afton's adventures. But it's probably just gonna be new lore. Or it could change the lore that's specifically in this part. Because previous one is established in multiple games, it will be hard to deviate it by releasing something new. Anyway, whatever. Like, subscribe, become a member, let's begin.
Hello, Internet!
Welcome to Game Theory.
And the final part of my FNAF timeline, where today we're bringing our story to a close by talking about the most complicated and controversial part of the timeline. The part that I've been dreading most of all, the end. The moment where we're finally forced to come to some definitive and difficult answers trying to explain what the heck
And this is
we
the
were
most
watching
controversial
in
one,
Security
I'm
Breach.
excited.
The last two episodes have been about death. The death of Afton's family, the deaths of multiple children, the death of the franchise itself as Mike and Henry figuratively and literally burn it all down. Today's episode, though, and the current end of this franchise, is instead all about rebirth. The return of old characters in new forms, and the controversial rebirth of a franchise entering the next era of its story. But before we hop into the timeline, due to scheduling conflicts, I won't be able to have any live talk back after this episode. I know, I promised one, I was really excited about it, but I just couldn't make it work with my schedule and all the other guests'
Oh wait, no,
schedules.
live talk.
That said, I still do
It's
plan
like on
on
stream.
doing one over the coming weeks with special guests. Just make sure that you're subscribed and either have all
not
notifications
in this
turned
video?
on, or you're just watching our community tab for the announcement as to when that's gonna happen. And now, without any further ado, we finally reach
I don't
the
really wanna
end and a new
watch a
beginning
stream.
to our story.
Especially in a VOD style, because it's been months.
There is no need for you to
Almost 2
return
months.
to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is
The
no
only video
longer
that's
a
not 2
corporate
months old.
entity.
All debts had been paid.
At the time of
assets
recording.
redistributed. The company was outright dissolved. Even the memories of the horrors that had happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness. The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria. All of them collateral damage to the man in the bunny suit. Everyone the company had ever touched was
That
dead and gone.
fucking bunny suit.
Well, all except one.
Pay your child support, you deadbeats! I'm keeping the diamond ring. I also set the house on fire!
Clara Afton. She'd been there in the early days, back when things
The
with
wife?
William were good. They'd had the perfect home, a thriving business, the ideal family. But shortly after their youngest son died, things started to change. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. And despite her trying to reach out to him in those desperate days, he was just too far gone.
Still sick rhymes.
Admit it, you wanted to let me in.
For her sake, she had to leave the relationship, and from there, she largely faded into obscurity. A mystery from William's
Yeah, I
past,
thought she
a
just
footnote in
still
his
was sitting
history.
there
That was
watching
fine
TV.
for her. She wanted to leave that part of her life behind. She tried to move forward, never wanting to hear the name Freddy Fazbear again. A time defined by mistakes and broken promises. But then, the paperwork started to arrive. As Fazbear Entertainment began to close as a corporate entity, suddenly her mail was flooded with notifications, requests, obligations. She had been there since the beginning, helping William in the early days of his business, and now, as a shareholder and sole living member of the Afton family, all copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics and Fazbear Entertainment passed on to her. Memories of this past
And she
life
made a
that she
new
had
thing.
long left behind. Looking at the blueprints,
who made the
the
robots?
contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. The regrets
Did she make
of
them
a
because
happy
she
family
had
that had been torn
blueprints?
away from her. William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by obsession and pride. He was too jealous,
Pride
too
and
petty, too
prejudice.
unable to actually see a bigger picture. But now, holding the paperwork that contained decades of heartbreak and trauma, she realized it was her turn. She was holding the power. This was her
would never
chance.
escape.
And one thought resonated in her head. I will put them back together. I will put them all back together. She would be the one to
family
rebuild
rebuilt.
this family, to rebuild the pieces of that shattered life, to reclaim the kids that Fazbear had stolen from her. But how? Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew that he had been onto something, collecting remnant, robotic humanoids, digital conscience transference. The pieces were all in place, they were just scattered.
I guess he's still there, yeah, on the circuit
Like
board.
there were too many ideas going in too many different directions. It was such an important idea that she reiterated that point to herself. There were too many ideas going in too many different directions. That said, there had to be a way to save it all. She just needed to put it all back together. But how? To rebuild her family, she would first need to rebuild the franchise that had stolen them away from her. With ownership over the characters, their licenses, the technology patents, and the Fazbear name, she converted the corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are usually family-owned. The irony was fitting. From
She
there,
gonna be
she
the
would
bunny?
need Remnant, and lots of
Security
it.
breach?
Remnant was the key. Clearly, in the later years of his life, William had been using Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals as a remnant farm, sending robots to kids' birthday parties in the hopes of nabbing bits of the stuff here and there. But clearly, it wasn't enough. He had, what, like 4, maybe 5 animatronics going out every week? No. It was a decent idea, but to get the remnant they required, it needed scale. Dozens, hundreds of animatronics, all out there, all
God,
gathering
she went
remnant
that
from
far.
unsuspecting customers. But to do that would require help, something William would never ask for. William had kept everything in-house. His obsession with control limited him. Clara, though, she wasn't nearly that precious. A plan like this required partners, people outside of Fazbear to do the heavy lifting. So she contacted a mid-sized delivery company, DLZ Shipping Solutions, to help build replicas of all the original animatronics. And with meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic delivery service? Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween
Red
party.
eyes like
How
in the
about a
FNAF
4th of
trailer
July
movie.
picnic? We'll invite Liberty Chica and 4th of July Freddy on over. She would make sure that they made skins for every occasion. Chocolate Bonnies for Easter, Shamrock
That's where
Freddies
it's
for
from.
St. Patrick's Day, Dia de las Muertos Chicas. And thus, the Fazbear Funtime service was born.
That's right. With the Fazbear Fun Time
Here he
service,
is!
You'll never be alone again. You'll always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout? Pff, no doubt. It was exactly the sort
cool,
of thing
though.
that William
The designs
would
are
have
very cool.
hated, but it needed to be done to get enough remnant.
I don't know, they're
Normally,
from
the novelty
games
of
or
ordering an animatronic wore
just
off after like
something that
one,
Matthew
maybe
Matthew
2
and
times.
Co.
But with
made.
new skins for new holidays, suddenly you had yourself an animatronic perfect for every occasion. It would keep people hooked. It would keep them ordering the latest and greatest that
It'll keep
Fazbear
children
Entertainment
hooked
LLC had to
inside
offer.
them.
And all the while, they'd be collecting and returning the remnant back to her. In a word, it was brilliant. There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. No one would want to
Yeah,
hire
that makes
animatronics
sense.
from the restaurant franchise known for murdering children. Nothing kills a party quite like the threat of death, you know. So she needed to find a way to discredit
I don't
the
know.
stories that had come before. She needed
It's
to win
just
back
me,
the
maybe.
public's affections, reactivate some nostalgia for the spooky stories of their childhoods. She needed a game. Multiple games, in fact.
They lied to us. They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole
he had, like,
point of
the-
this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue
It's the
indie
VR
game
stuff.
developer. But that's not true at all. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up.
Struggling game developers were a dime a dozen online, most working on their magnum
Different color
opus between
Scots.
shifts at the Dollar General. So she found one. Steve just picked him out of obscurity, the right mix of desperate and doofus willing to say and do anything for a couple extra bucks. And he fell right in line, as expected, delivering stupid little things with dumb generic names like Mangle's Quest, Balloon Boy's Air Adventure, Five Nights at Freddy's. Bad gameplay with even worse graphics, but hey, they got the job done. People were suddenly talking about the clues inside of these
It's cool how
things,
they make fun
searching
of
for the hidden
themselves.
lore. They were actively making jokes about dead kids at pizzerias. Her husband's twisted history of serial murder had suddenly been reduced to a mere Nancy Drew mystery to be solved. The plan had worked. Freddy Fazbear's
What if
was
Scott
suddenly
did that?
more popular than
He killed
ever.
children
Things were going
in the past, now he's
shockingly
covering it
well.
up.
Her takeover and reboot of the franchise was full
What
and
if this,
complete.
the
Suddenly
whole
infused with
series is a
cash, she built the
documentary?
largest, most ambitious project yet, the Mega Pizzaplex. William had always been so visionary, but always thought so small scale. He was careful to a fault. Not her, though. She knew that this latest project needed to be big. It needed to be flashy. It needed to be a palace for children. A place that
And it
got
doesn't
people
need to
talking
have a
and checking
security
out the
breach.
latest in Fazbear products. So with a steady supply of remnant flowing in, it was finally time. The stage was set. It was time to get to her real goal, literally rebuilding a family. March 2035. The first
Holy
was
shit.
obvious. The crying child, her little
We're in
boy,
the future now.
one that was the first to get ripped away from her. She'd seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology, and so that's exactly what she would do. Rebuild her boy from the ground up using robotic parts. His shaggy brown hair, his favorite striped shirt, even down to small details that no one would notice, like the band-aid on his left knee. William's research had even found ways of making animatronics that could bleed and process food, making them virtually indistinguishable from a typical human. He would never have any idea of what he actually was unless he was explicitly
become
told.
human?
The only things that could possibly
Is it
ruin
Gregory?
the illusion were any overrides to his internal systems. If something were to, say, interfere with the cameras that he had in his eyes, or cause some sort of a core reboot to his hard drive, or x-ray his metallic bones, then yeah, he would be exposed. But otherwise, to the outside world, he was just your typical, normal human boy. She worked down in the bowels of the Pizzaplex, giving him life, but it was one thing to build
Oh,
him,
that's one
it was
of the
another to
endings
help
is
him
there.
remember his identity. He died so young, so early in their history that there was no preserved memories for him, no documentation that she could just download into his digital brain. So bit by bit, she trained him, forcing him to remember who he was. In a corner of the room, she even made a makeshift dinner table, a reminder of their happier days. The family recreated: 2 brothers, a sister, a father, and the mother at the head of the table. The one in charge, the one in command, the one bringing all of this to fruition. But his progress was admittedly slower than she would have liked. At first, he could only communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary drawings and crude letters. But bit by bit, images of his past life started to come through. Balloons, colors, houses, bears and faces, birthday
words,
parties,
normal
all
ones.
for me. Gregory was alive. As the robot boy
It
embraced
is
her, she felt
Gregory.
a warmth that she hadn't in decades. This was the joy that she'd been working towards. This was what it was all for. Her son, back in her arms again. The plan was working. She had to keep going. Next was William. If the family was truly going to be put together, she would need him. And she knew exactly where he was, in the ruins of that old Freddy Fazbear's pizza place where Henry had trapped him. In fact, that's specifically why she insisted on building the Pizzaplex there over the sinkhole. It was the best place to
On
hide
top
what
of
her
it.
true intentions were with the entire operation. Digging through the wreckage, she found him. He was right where she thought he'd be. Seeing the putrid shell of the Springtrap suit, though, was not something she was prepared for. The rotting corpse of William Afton was disgusting. Scorched flesh fused into the fur lining. Hollow black sockets where eyes once were. A smell that reeked of burned carbon and bloody iron. He was no longer flesh. He was just the tangled sinews of a creature that
Bloody
was once
iron.
called human. How far this brilliant
Iron
man
is-
had
I mean,
fallen.
blood
It was
is
clear that her
irony
work
to
was cut
smell,
out for her on this
to begin
one.
with.
Afton was practically lifeless. The man may not have been able to die, but he was about as close as you could come. And his body would need a lot of reconstruction. Replacement arms and endoskeleton reinforcements were the top priority. Maybe pulled from their new line of glam rock animatronics. She'd have to see if they had any spare Bonnie parts lying around that they could steal. In the meantime, though, she threw the husk that was once her husband into a life support pod infused with aerosolized remnant to help keep him stable. But more important than recovering his body was recovering his mind. In his current state, he was comatose, an empty shell. Severe brain damage starts at
I wouldn't say
temperatures over
comatose, I would
108
say
degrees
dead.
Fahrenheit. 42 degrees Celsius, and years of repeated fires had burned his brain to goo. Gone was the brilliant, frustrating mind that had drawn her to him in the first place. But she had a plan. Unlike her darling boy Gregory, Afton had found ways to record his consciousness. Fundamentally, the brain is only a series of electrical connections after all, so why couldn't
Yeah.
you replicate that in the form of a standard circuit board? In essence, you could create a digital consciousness. And one thing she knew about William, he was nothing if not cautious. A planner. Someone who had backup plans to his backup plans. And sure enough, there it was. Buried in piles of old animatronic CPUs, a record of Afton himself. but she needed someone to test it.
Someone was definitely here during the night. It had to have been the client. I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves.
Unlike the other games that she'd paid to have made in the past, this one had a different purpose. This wasn't about PR, it was about getting William back up and running, spreading his virus to the masses.
You acknowledge that Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters.
She hired a new developer, Silver Parasol Games, to scan the boards and bring her husband into the system. And because of the immersive nature of VR, William's consciousness would be able to merge with the player, giving him a new body, a new agency. There was just one complication. Afton's hold wasn't as powerful as she had hoped. He wasn't able to gain complete control. The first trial run, Jeremy, was so desperate to escape from his grasp that he sliced his own face off with a paper shredder. Messy. Afton's followers were reluctant, to say the least. But it was the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa. Mrs. Afton wanted a surrogate daughter. Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman at this point if she had lived. And Clara wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth but could be just like her. Could she have just rebuilt her like Gregory? Sure, but she decided against it because she wanted an actual human mother-daughter connection. Well, that, and it would be redundant and narratively unsatisfying to have two robot kids in the same family. What could she say? William had put a lot of tools on the table for her to use, and she was planning on using them all. Plus, Elizabeth had always been so loyal to Daddy. It was time to give her a second chance, a true choice. And Vanessa seemed to be the perfect candidate to fill the role.
Your dad's name was Bill. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. He manipulated you. I know your mum after she lost the custody case. I was supposed to be a good girl.
She started as a QA tester at Silver Parasol Games, a VR game development company that was part of her plan to bring back William. But more importantly, Vanessa checked all the correct boxes. Right age, blonde, green eyes with a fondness for flowers and the outdoors. In many ways, it was her daughter all over again. Except it wasn't just looks and personality. What really mattered was Vanessa's mind. Underconfident, coming from a broken home, motherless, able to be manipulated. Yes. She would do nicely. She would be the one to save dear old Daddy, just as the real Elizabeth would have wanted.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
While testing the VR game, William's digital consciousness merged with Vanessa. Oh sure, she fought, fragmenting Afton's code into a series of tapes hidden across the game, trying to do web searches to regain control over her life, but it wasn't enough. She was weaker than Jeremy. She was a thrall
That's the monitor setup I want.
Moments of lucidity had to obey. And with Vanessa, it was a 2-for-1 deal. She was getting a daughter back while also bringing her husband one step closer to reactivation. She just had to make sure that Vanessa was headed the right way. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being an Afton and a robot, so Clara had him keeping tabs on Vanessa, hacking into her emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. If any of the therapists started to ask too many questions, they were promptly dismissed from their positions. And while Gregory kept tabs on Vanessa's personal life, Mrs. Afton made sure to clear a path for her professionally. With Silver Parasol's collapse at the hands of the Anomaly, she then had the possessed Vanessa bring the contaminated circuit boards to DLZ shipping and the Fazbear Funtime service. More glitches, more Remnant, more Afton. But it was her last move that was the best. In a true masterpiece of poetry, she brought Vanessa over to be Chief Security Officer at the Pizzaplex. A true family tradition to don the hat and badge, and all it took was a recommendation from the top, as well as some emails marked for deletion. Sure, Vanessa didn't have relevant experience for the job, but when it comes directly from the CEO, does it really matter? Husband, son, daughter, a corpse, a robot, a human. All that was left was Michael.
Only logically it does.
Troubled Michael. The boy that killed her youngest. The one that would spend years trying to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. Well, she knew she needed him to complete the family. Something told her that the problem had already solved itself. Something had shifted when using Glamrock Freddy to excavate the buried pizza place.
I have been here before. I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. I have changed. My friends are here, but I can protect you. I am not.
I remember that. That's in Security Breach.
Maybe it was the remnant that had coursed through Michael's veins. Maybe it was the spirit of Michael living on as a protector. But he was there, somewhere inside of Glamrock Freddy. She could feel it. And just like that, she'd won. She'd done it. Sure, there were still some kinks to work out, some final brainwashing of Vanessa, some rehabilitation of William, but they were there. Finally, all together again under one roof. The Aftons reunited. A happy ending. That's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended, had it not been for a few unanticipated developments. For one, something was just wrong with the Pizzaplex. Almost as if the entire building was haunted, possessed. Puppet plushies hiding on ceilings, behind crates, places that they had no earthly way of belonging. Staff bots with greasy tears down their eyes acting like they were being puppeteered by some sort of a nightmare. Even their sounds had the echo of nightmares long past. It was as though a guardian spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around, it too would
Again,
linger.
did I forget who was the
just in one
spirit in the puppet?
the essence of the building itself. She had seen stories of houses built on burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never assumed that it could be real. Then again, in a world of spirit metal and mind-controlling glitches, who was she to be so judgmental? The whole thing was ridiculous. Why would this be the line that she refused to cross? After all, the Pizzaplex was built over the burial ground of angry spirits, but it was the power cords that finally convinced her that something was wrong. Suddenly, these cords were striped black and white, like the security puppet from generations ago. The very foundations of this place, the materials and wires that constituted it were rebelling against her, against the Aftons, against the quest to bring them all together again. And it was being helped by something else, something slithering through the building. Maybe they were connected, she couldn't be sure, but a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it was a byproduct of all the remnant they'd been collecting. From Afton's testing, she knew that both light and dark remnant existed, one of positive emotions and the other created from anguish, anger, agony.
That's the puppet colors.
This thing was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of the pizzeria's history, a collection of the hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and exosuits. As long as it was left alone, it seemed to be harmless, but if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly. Even young Gregory, looking to punish the family that had been complicit in its horrible creation. Little did she know, though, that Gregory should have been her biggest concern, that bringing the family together would have some unforeseen consequences. Gregory was normally the goodest of boys.
The security.
Literally built him that way. But lately, he'd been disappearing more and more often, disobeying her orders, requests. She knew that he loved playing on the arcade machines.
Rebellious teen, it's fine.
Being so good as to top the leaderboard on practically all of them. But lately, he was nowhere to be found. She suspected his absence had to do with Glamrock Freddy's failed performance the other night, when he malfunctioned live on stage. Almost as though the core programming of Freddy responded to seeing this rebuilt small boy. Almost like it awakened something inside of him. She'd have to make sure that Vanessa was on the lookout for him. But she'd soon come to learn that Vanessa wasn't enough. Whether it was the influence of the nightmare puppet or a reawakened hatred of animatronics seated deep in Gregory's code, something had caused him to rebel, to rip apart each animatronic in the Pizzaplex. Bit by bit, this boy was tearing down
kind of satisfying to see.
So painstakingly built, freeing Vanessa from her mind control, destroying the remains of Afton in the basement, setting Glamrock Freddy loose. As her carefully created world crumbled around her one more time, she began to plot her revenge. She would have to bring them all to ruin. And there you have it, my friends. Nearly a decade in the making.
Is that it? Oh, that's not the satisfying ending.
Is here in 2023. Year of Fazbear Frights, by the way. As always, it wouldn't be right for me to finish without going over some of the more controversial takes that I just handed out. I think we can all agree that this part of the timeline was always going to be the hardest. So let me just break down some
Seems
of the
normal so far.
First of all, the biggest swing of this episode, and obviously the one that everything else rests upon, Mrs. Afton being the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment LLC. Here's why I went with this route. Now, first and foremost, the head of Fazbear Entertainment is the single biggest mystery that we're meant to solve at this point in the lore. The Ultimate Guide brings it up repeatedly. Who's running the show? Wait for the
movie and more games.
And in the security breach memos, we get multiple mentions of someone manipulating.
I actually might be right about like next stuff that comes out would bring more lore to the existing lore, but like the latest parts like this, since it's probably not the end. I don't know. Was it said that like Security Breach is the latest game and never will be another one? Or is there just gonna be more?
Things from the top down. Whoever this is, they are the person driving forward
there's more
every other facet of late-stage FNAF lore here. They're the puppet master who's hiring the indie dev. They're the ones relaunching the brand, building the Pizzaplex over the burial ground. So everything at the
someone
end of the
has to have power
like
that.
And one singular answer.
She
now, as
makes
I see it, there
sense.
are two possibilities here. One, an adult robot Elizabeth, like we see older versions of Robot Kids in the Fourth Closet, or Mrs. Afton. Could it be someone completely new to the franchise? Absolutely yes, but in a game with so many returning faces and repeating themes, it would be pretty random and arbitrary.
It could be a new face, but it has to make sense. It couldn't be just someone random like, oh, this person bought the rights and thought they'll remake them or something. I don't think that's gonna fly.
So, between these two girl bosses, who then would it be? Well, Elizabeth always wants to please her daddy, so she'd be most likely wanting to bring him to life. But then, what's Vanessa's role in all of this? Vanessa is clearly meant to be a parallel for Elizabeth. Same hair, same eyes, similar backstories, but if the main goal is getting the Afton family back together, which seems to clearly be the case in Security Breach, then there's no need for Vanessa to be involved at all. We already have Elizabeth running the show. It would also mean that we suddenly have two robot kids running around, which...
Well, maybe Elizabeth saw Vanessa and thought she is like her, or like real her, so she kept her around.
Feels narratively repetitive and quite frankly kind of dumb. Now look at Mrs. Afton. We know next to nothing about her outside of any clues that we can get from Immortal and the Restless and Bellora's song. But what her being head of Fazbear does is make every other piece of the lore fit. Suddenly, you can have one of every other type of character. One robot kid in Gregory, one brainwashed human in Elizabeth/Vanessa, one OG corpse in William, and one possessed animatronic in Mike. Narratively, it makes everything else cleaner. Legally, it's also the option that makes the most sense. As I call out my narrative, she'd likely have some stake in the original company and all of its assets. So as Fazbear folds as a company, I'd suspect a lot of it would return.
Is there a chance that someone connected to Henry could be here? If not Henry himself?
This particular direction, and that was this right here in the post-it room, the big lore central of Security Breach, a dinner table scene.
Why would he recreate the family,
including the mother? And not only is she there, she is at the head of that table, the position of highest honor and responsibility.
But one of the brothers doesn't have a head.
Charge with
Probably the
William
youngest that was
relegated off to
bitten.
the side. That one scene
But maybe
shows
he's
that we
the
have to
head
include
of this
Mom
whole
in there
operation.
somewhere, and the only place it makes sense for her to be is at the top. Now there is one big dilemma with my interpretation of all this. The Ultimate Guide really seems to point out that the head of Fazbear doesn't want the glitch trap virus to spread. They call out one particular email in FNAF AR where the legal team calls a cease and desist to all action about scanning the circuit boards. And even in FNAF VR, we're told that the circuit boards get stolen back by the client, presumably once they realize what danger is on there, trying to stop Glitch Trap before he spreads and gets out of hand. Here's the problem with that though, if the head of Fazbear doesn't want Afton to rise again, why'd they restart the company in the first place? Why'd they build over the FNAF 6 pizzeria? Why'd they go through an elaborate cover-up to make the possessed Vanessa an important part of the company? Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be the most inconsistent series of actions ever, but I did want to call attention to it since it seems to be the route that the official guide is trying to steer us towards. Moving on to minor point number 1, the Five Nights at Freddy's games were made by the rogue indie developer. Here's the thing, FNAF VR opens with this line.
That's why we have recreated many of these completely fictitious scenarios, lies that you've been fed over the last several years, into a hilarious VR game.
It's recreating the lies told to you by the indie developer, and since Help Wanted has direct recreations of FNAFs 1 through 3, it means the games must be part of the fabrications that this developer made up. Also, all of this is heavily implied in the story of the same name, Help Wanted and Tales of the Pizzaplex, hence FNAF 1 through 3, canon games within the lore of the series. Big swing number 2, the elephant, or ghost in the room, Charlie infecting the Pizzaplex. John from the channel FNAF has made some great findings about Charlie's influence over the Pizzaplex. The cables that looked like the striped arms of the puppet, the Nightmarion plushies that you find hidden across the Pizzaplex in weird places, the staff bots with creepy smiles and in your dreams written on the front. All of these things scream puppets. Plus, with the puppet mask not having tears and blob, seems to imply that Charlie's spirit exists elsewhere. She is still
puppet
in play,
is there.
and she has an important role, especially
so Charlie's the puppet, I did forget. Okay.
The doors to the post-it room in the game's code are called Charlie doors, and inside we see a bunch of lit up nightmare staff bot heads. Suspicious to say the least. The channel ID's Fantasy did a great theory looking at the post-it notes, concluding that the crying child / Gregory isn't alone in this room, but rather might be communicating with someone. A spirit, Charlie. Charlie's spirit seems to have pulled a poltergeist. Instead of controlling one thing, she's affecting a lot of little details, foundational elements of the Pizzaplex. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this in the franchise either. We've seen spirits communicating with people through physical writing in the survival logbook. So we know that this is an established means of spirit communication within this franchise. And I suspect that to some extent it might be Charlie's influence making Gregory go haywire. Which brings me then to my final and probably biggest controversy in recent FNAF history, Gregory as Patient 46, the evil robot mastermind. Now, I know when I first came out with this theory a year ago, people were mad. But here's the thing, you don't have to take my evidence points for it
I don't
anymore.
remember
The
what Patient
recent
46
Tales
is.
from the Pizzaplex story GGY basically goes and just outright proves it. In GGY, we find out about a boy named Gregory who's getting all the high scores in the Pizzaplex arcade machines. When
GGY.
therapists start to go missing, it's confirmed that GGY is the one that's working to bump them off. And when animatronics start getting corrupted by a mysterious glitch, GGY's letters are found inside the code. He even chooses the code name Dr. Rabbit, for crying out loud. But obviously, by the time of security breach, Gregory is working against Burn Trap, Vanessa, and the animatronics. Why? How? Well, it's not really clear. I tend to believe that something must have happened to cause him to either lose his memory or be reset in some way. Maybe it was Charlie talking to him in his post-it room. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe it was the connection that he made with Mike on stage in Glamrock Freddy. Not exactly sure, and I don't think we have enough clues to solve any of it yet. But it makes sense from a story perspective why he'd start off evil on Afton's side and then switch to trying to destroy him and not knowing who he is in security breach. And with that, my friends, I'm wrapping this thing up. Congratulations, we are on page 40. 22,000 words of FNAF, baby.
Nice.
Practically just wrote myself a Tales of the Pizzaplex short story. Have I answered everything?
Short
Does
story.
everything fit cleanly? No. But does
I
it
guess
feel
40
like
pages
the
isn't
best,
that long.
most cohesive narrative for all these characters that addresses most of the evidence we're given? Yeah. For me, honestly, it really does. And let's be honest with ourselves.
It
the DLC
feels
will probably come out later this
cohesive,
year
it's
and prove
fine.
me completely wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Then comes
Oh, is
the
there a
movie, whatever.
DLC?
My descent into madness continues. But regardless, I am so proud of this. This was a massive undertaking, and I'm so proud of our editors who have just
You are a
destroyed
great
editing
Undertaker,
across all 4 of
Matt
these
Pat.
installments. You guys are the best. Thank you for pushing through on 20+ minute uploads. You are unreal, and your talent is unrivaled.
Can't
I'm
wait for
so
the next
lucky
video
working with
after
you guys
the
every
end.
single day. And like I mentioned before, keep an eye on the channel for an announcement regarding a talkback live stream with some special guests. Was I right? Was I wrong? I want to hear your feedback, so that one's coming up soon. And with that, my friends, we can finally rest. I can leave the demon
that's
to its
already
demons
happened, probably.
with one final reminder that it was all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Classic. Sword souls flying around. Okay. Well, here we have it. The ultimate timeline for now is finished. Oh, it was released on 26th of March, 25th of March, like it was said in the previous videos. And there is no community post about the live stream. Maybe they were deleted after the live stream happened. I don't know. They're not going live here, right? They have their own live, GT Live. Yeah, that's the one. FNAF movie trailer. An hour-long video about the FNAF movie trailer. Jesus. Should be like close to 2 months ago if it exists. There's a fear. Does this theory fix my FNAF timeline? The police are chasing Afton Spectre, FNAF, VHS, Police Archive, Analog Horror. I guess maybe fan-made stuff. Is that the one? 2.5 hours? FNAF The Broken Timeline? I know I'm not showing anything, I'm just curious if that happened or not. I'm definitely not making a reaction to it. Probably not even gonna watch that. I'm satisfied enough as it is with what we've got in this Ultimate Timeline. It works out very well. It's very cohesive in this manner. So I think it's good. But there's definitely gonna be more stuff. There's DLC decoded video. Did Security Breach DLC already come out? Now I'm saying already the game is over a year old. I think. FNAF Security Breach. December 2021. Yeah, it is over a year old. DLC? is coming. There are videos 3 days ago about it coming out. Oh, there was a new teaser. So it is still in the making. Okay. Oh, and release set to be released for free in 2023. That's nice of them. But it is not out yet, so there is more. There's always more. The theories always come back. MatPat always comes back with a new theory regarding FNAF. And yeah, I am here for it. I like this a lot. I've never played a single game myself. I've watched probably just Markiplier play most of them, if not all of them. When I was going through these videos, I realized that I've actually seen more. I just forgot about it. Like the AR one, I think Mark had like one video on it, but I did watch it, and barely anything seemed not out of place. New to me, not in like theory way, in like the design for animatronics, only some parts, but then when they were burning, that thing I remember. I don't know. Maybe because they were. No, I don't know. I don't have any theories that except that I forgot. Don't matter. When there's a DLC and there's additional Ultimate Timeline videos out, I might react to them as well. But we'll see when we get there. For now, thank you everybody for watching this. What? I keep forgetting what I normally say here. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it a lot. That's the one. And I forgot now. Thank you for coming. I can't remember. But I hope to see you next time. And goodbye. Have a great life, because one of us has to. Jesus.